Business Matters with Amy Smith on Eastern Sierra Now. I am your host, Amy Smith, and today we have a special guest, Joanne Parsons, a dedicated board member of the Tricounty Fair held at the Bishop Fairgrounds. Joanne will be sharing insights about the fair's history, recent changes on the board, and what exciting events we can look forward to this year. Before we dive in, please like and subscribe to our channel for more engaging content and updates. Remember, individual episode sponsorships are available for this and all other area-leading ESN content. For more information, visit easternsierranow.com. Let's get started. Joanne, thank you so much for coming in today. It is such a pleasure to meet you. I've known about the fair for so long. I've been going to the fair since my kids were babies. I have such great memories, but I've never got to meet you before.
Well, thank you. And Amy, it's a thrill to meet you. Mm-hmm. And can I just say one thing about Jesse?
You can say all the things about Jesse. I can listen to that all day.
I have to tell you that Jesse Steele was one of my students, and I used to do the local television show a long time ago, and Jesse and some of his friends would come down to the television station. So to me, it's a thrill to see this, and let me call it generational Jesse, but to see Jesse come back and be doing this and being successful. I'm sure it was because I was his principal.
I think it's, yes, I think you deserve a lot of credit for that. But Jesse with Eastern Sierra Now, he's made this incredible studio.
Hasn't he?
Yeah, and we're able to come in and talk to people like you and really learn more about the community and, and jump in there. So yeah, no, well, all the praise for Eastern Sierra Now and Jesse. He's done a fantastic job.
You.
Yeah,
Thank
you for being with him in the ages when he was. I'd like to hear some stories about that maybe later.
When we're off camera.
Okay. Okay, that sounds perfect. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me a little bit about your role as a board member on the Tri-County Fair at the Bishop Fairgrounds. I'd love to hear more about that and know what you do and what your role is within that board.
I'll try to answer that within 5 minutes, but
okay, you do a lot.
Anyway, I moved from Southern California to Mammoth many years ago, and I had been in 4-H when I was a child and always went to the fair. So I thought my children should become involved in the fair, and they started 4-H. We would drive down here for the livestock show, and one of them had a pig, the other one had a sheep. Aww. And so that's always been important to me, and to have them be part of a community and meet other young children, families. And so eventually I worked my way down here to Bishop and became the high school principal. And when I did, I was really involved in the fair, and I was asked if I would like to join and be on a member of the fair, the fairgrounds. And it's a government appointment, and so this will make you smile. It was in the 90s, the late 90s. Pete Wilson was a governor at the time and appointed me. So I've been on the fair board a long time. And I've served many roles,
Oh, that's great.
President, vice president, hanger-oner, and just a general participant. But to me, what the fair is, it's a place for community and family to gather and to get immersed in our community of, raising flowers, baking. Baking is huge at our fairgrounds.
You were telling me a baking story earlier about your granddaughter.
Well, I was.
Yeah.
So, and there were 3 generations there watching my granddaughter get a blue ribbon. And, but aside from that, there's so many other families with their animals and the kids with their stories. We bring kids from the elementary school over the day before the fair starts, and that's through Altrusa, and they all get books, and they get to bring pictures that they've drawn of what they think a fair should look like, and then it's put up in the Charles Brown Auditorium. Amy, you need to ask me another question.
Well, I'm just enjoying listening. And my questions lead right along those lines. And I wanted to ask you what inspired you to be a board member, but I think you've answered that. It really is community, and the generations that have been coming to this fair year after year. Do you know when the fair began, when all of this started?
I'll give you a little history.
Okay.
And the fair started about 100 years ago.
Really? Oh, wow.
And they really weren't called fairs then. They were like a festival, or they were like a market. And in rural communities where farming was important, people would come in the summertime, you know, a big weekend, a long weekend, because they would be traveling with their animals and their buckboards, and they would bring in vegetables, and some of the wives started bringing in flowers, and it was like that for a long time. And then as things grew bigger and bigger, people started bringing animals and trading animals. And then once that got going, then fairs started having events like carnivals and games and things like that. But backing up a little bit, it's always a little difficult to explain sometimes because we are called the Tricounty Fair. So that means we're Inyo County, we're Mono County, and we're Alpine County.
And that was the one I had to look up, and I'm like, what is the third county? So it's Alpine County.
It is. You know,
Okay.
I'm not sure what happened there.
How did they become?
Somebody in Sacramento was throwing darts.
They must have been.
And they really
a
didn't.
crow. The crow flies.
They
yeah.
had no idea where Alpine County was, and it's really on, you know, the other side.
It's pretty. Yeah, it's a good distance away.
Well, it is. And in the beginning, when I was first on the board, we did have members from Alpine County.
I
We're
see.
supposed to be a 9-member board.
Okay.
But currently, we only have 5 members. And we had 4 for a very long time, and just recently a 5th was added on.
For such a large event, that's a very small number of board members.
It is.
So that must mean the board members that are just part of that 5, that must give each of them a huge amount of responsibility.
You know, I'm really proud to be part of this board.
Yes.
And it's a very active board. I would say, I love Rotary, I love Altrusa and everything, but what the contributions that the fair does for these communities is huge.
It is.
And to go and see the joy, and I know I keep on going back to this, but when you see little kids and families that maybe can't go to Disneyland, but they save their money and they come to our carnival and our fair,
yes.
I mean, that's huge.
It is.
And it's a time when you see people from Mammoth and you go, oh my gosh, you know, how are you, all the kids?
Yeah.
And it's just remarkable of what the magic that happens at our fairgrounds.
It's the heart of Bishop. It's the heart of the community, but it draws in so many people from outside areas.
That's
as
right.
well. And I lived in Mammoth. I'm between Bishop and Mammoth now. I'm living just at the top of the grade, but we always came down. It was always something that we did. It was on the calendar every year. We really looked forward to it. And in the recent years, the venue, the concerts, the entertainment, I mean, it has just gone off the charts. I was watching Winona Judd, and I'm, you know, within, I could see her eyelashes. I was so close, and I'm like, how did this happen? How is she even here? And huge kudos to you and to the board for bringing that level of talent to Bishop.
Can I tell you a little story about that?
Oh, I would love
Okay,
to, because I love that concept, and I just love her, so it was,
This will be a little bit about Jen, because this is how all of this has happened, to be honest.
And let's mention Jen. So Jen McGuire is, or was until very recently, the CEO on the Bishop County, Tri-County, on the fairgrounds.
And after I tell you about Winona, I'd like to go back and tell you how we found Jen as a CEO, if that's
I'd love
okay.
to know. Yeah, I'd love to know about that, and just what we've been seeing in the recent years, because I've been really impressed. So I'd love to learn about how have you made that happen here in Bishop.
Well, and I'm going to save a teaser of at the end of what's going to happen at the fairgrounds that Jen has brought to us. But Winona Judd. Jen loves concerts, and when she first came here, everyone said, you can't have a concert. Nobody in Bishop, remember that, Jesse? No one in Bishop goes to a concert.
Oh, my goodness.
And so she's, yeah, well, okay, thank you. But in her, before she came here, she loves music. And she had taken her son to a Winona Judd concert. And in doing so, I don't think she would mind my saying this, her son happens to be deaf. And so she went up to the people up in front and said, where do you set your deaf people that come to a concert. Well, the guy kind of looked at her and said, well, I don't know that we do things like that. So Winona Judd happened to hear her talking to this gentleman, and after the show was over, she made sure that anybody that needed to come up front
You
could
can
go.
feel the music.
Exactly.
You can feel. So the question she was asking is, where can he stand to
Yes.
feel the music?
Exactly.
Were they able to accommodate him?
They did.
Oh,
And
that's
afterwards,
fantastic.
Winona Judd meets Jen at an after-hours party and asked her to come. They became friends, and so she wrote to Winona and said, I'm in Bishop. Will you come? I mean, you talk about a small town story.
This is
That's a pretty fabulous story.
It is. It is.
And she loved coming here.
She was talking on stage, and we were all so close, and that's the beauty of going to a venue like the fair, because everything is so close, and it was probably one of my best concert experiences. So I owe Jen a thank you for that. So I'll have to, when you see her, pass that along from me personally. And my young daughter was with me as well.
Oh, good.
And that was one of her first really close upfront concerts, and to see Winona.
Wasn't it fantastic?
It was
Yeah,
amazing.
it just really was.
It was. And speaking of Jen, I know there have been a lot of changes on the board lately, and I know that Jen recently has exited the board. Would you be able to share some light or shed some light on that subject for us?
You know, may I start with how we got Jen first?
I would love to hear that. That would be
because
great.
then you can keep me on track.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, we had some incidences several years back. Well, gosh, maybe 10 or more now, and where there were some really huge issues at the fairgrounds. So the board decided that we should hire someone to help us find this right CEO that would fit here for our county and our communities, and all 3 counties. And so we hired Doug Glostrom. He's the former CEO of Orange County Fairgrounds.
Oh, okay.
So highly recommended. Anyone knows that Orange County is a tremendously huge and successful fair. And he worked with us, and we went through several people. This actually took us a couple of months, 3 months maybe or more, and to do background checks and to interview people. And Jen happened to be up in Mammoth. She had a condo up in Mammoth and was going back down south and read that there was an opening at the fairgrounds. So she applied, and I can tell you it was like we were all sitting there asking her these questions that she had unbelievably easily answered.
So right from the beginning, it was a perfect fit.
It was amazing.
Oh,
it was just like magic.
That was, yes.
So we got together and decided how we were going to do this. And now this is going to be a little deeper background, because at that time, we only had $5,000 in the bank account. And our present president of the Fair Board, Judy Wagner, was volunteering in the office. She called CDFA, which is California Department of Food and Ag, and said, we don't have any money, and we are going to hire this individual.
And to step back a second, could you give me the acronym once more for CDFA?
I'd be happy to.
Okay, I want to make sure that
because acronyms are just like.
And I had to read it a couple of times when I was understanding this. Could you tell me again what the name of the overseeing body is?
I will.
Is it of the fair or of the board? How does that relationship work?
Well, CDFA is California Department of Food and Agriculture.
I see.
So we're the 18th agricultural district in the state of California.
I see. Okay.
And so there's many levels, of course, and we can go further into that, because then above them is the state, and so there would be the Secretary of the State, and so on, and the governor.
And is it common they manage fairgrounds throughout the state?
Yes.
That's a common, okay,
yes.
That's how the structure works.
I believe we have 59 county fairs in the state of California.
Okay.
And we'll talk about that further when we're talking about loans and things that we've gotten. Judy called CDFA, California Department of Food and Ag, and we borrowed $20,000 or around $30,000, borrowed. This Fairgrounds did, from CDFA, so that we could hire Jen. And when Jen came, she could pay the electric bill. She could pay the 2 men that had been working here, and part of her salary. So the state, when you get hired as a CEO in the state, they have steps. 1 through 5, 1 through 25, 1 through 5. Anyway, since Jen had never been a CEO, we had to hire her as level 1.
What was her experience before coming to the fair? She
Jen
must have been doing some type of event organization.
She was a huge marketing person for the auto industry and had traveled all over the world.
So she brought those skills here.
Absolutely. And she just kind of wanted to come back home like the rest of us in an area that she loved and was very passionate about. She had also shown animals, rodeoed. She'd actually been here at the high school rodeo many years ago.
Well, and what a connection.
I know.
That's a beautiful connection.
It is, isn't it?
And that was in about 2018 that all of this was happening, that she was contemplating the job. You all met her.
Right.
You know, love at first sight.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
So 2018, and then you took the loan for her to come on board.
We did. But in doing that, we really didn't even have enough money to give her salary for step 1. And so in talking to the deputy secretary of CDFA, his name is Michael Flores, and his attorney is Haig Bagdashian, and that's a hard one to say.
It's hard to pronounce and hard to remember.
And Michael Flores. In talking to them, we said, what can we do to keep her? Because we honestly don't have the money to hire her. And so Jan offered the fact that she had a fifth wheel, and she could park that at the fairgrounds. So in her contract, we gave her a space at the fairgrounds. And what a magical thing that was.
Well, and isn't that amazing? Because with housing in our community today, I run a business. I have an employee that couldn't find housing. Fortunately, we were able to assist him with that. But if you can't find housing, you can't keep those good people.
That's
so,
right.
like so many of us today, you reached out and gave her a spot for her. Okay.
And then it did a wonderful thing that we never even thought about.
Yeah.
We were having people breaking into the barns and sleeping, and people coming, taking showers, and some homeless people, and we have young people with animals at the fairgrounds. So having Jen there 24 hours a day was just like an added. We should have been paying her more, but we but we didn't have the money at the time.
Well, and it was really forward thinking of the time, because now you have to offer housing. You have to give someone a way to come into the community.
You do.
So, and you were thinking about it way back then in 2018.
Yeah, right, Amy. So that's how, and we'll talk about that maybe just a little, and perhaps we'll talk more about that at our town hall meeting on Wednesday. We'll go into the RV situation, because that is mentioned in the audit.
Joanne, before we get into that, let's just take a moment. I'd like to hear a word from our sponsors, and then we'll be right back.
Thank you.
Once upon a time, the world relied heavily on fossil fuels to power its cities and cars. Corporations controlled these fuels and sold them at high cost. Though these fuels were powerful, they were polluting the air, making the skies gray and the rivers murky. People worried about the earth and their future. Then, one day, a group of wise and powerful wizards gathered from all corners of the globe. They worked together to harness the power of the sun, capturing its radiant energy in magical crystals. These wizards bestowed these sun crystals to the people, teaching them how to use the sun's endless light to power their homes and vehicles. As the people embraced this bright new gift, rooftops sparkled with the wizards' magical crystals, and cars began to hum gently, driven by sunlight. The skies cleared, the rivers sparkled, and the air became fresh again. The world thrived under the warm glow of the sun, and everyone lived happily ever after, because as the good wizard showed them, the power to change the world was within each of our grasp the whole time. Here's to a happy and green ever after from your friends at Highpoint Solar and Electric.
Welcome back. Joanne, before we went to commercial break, you said something very interesting, and you were talking about audit.
Yes.
I'd love to hear more about the audit, but what really fascinates me, and with my background in finance, is the financial structure of the fair, how it works, how it came to be, and the changes that we've seen over the last, you said 100 years here in Bishop, to bring us to the point that we are today. Can you share a little bit about that with us?
I'd be happy to give you the knowledge that I think that I have, that I remember over those 100 years. But
I'm sure it'll be a lot more than I have, so I'd appreciate anything you could share.
Well, remember I told you it started out with people just coming to like a market one month, 1 weekend a month. They would drive their wagons in and, circle the wagons and exchange vegetables and flowers and what have you. And then they started doing meat and trading animals. Well, once that became really popular in the state of California, counties figured out that might be a way to get some income.
Certainly.
And so the shop owners, of course, loved having all of the people from the outskirts come in. And somebody got smart and started having some music, as I said. And
Sure, you've got all these people here. Let's
you
entertain them. Let's,
and again, I think that goes back to the meaning to all of us about the county fair. It was those people that came and wanted that socialization. They wanted their families to know each other and build community, even though it was 100 miles out.
Right. You may only see those folks
That's
once
right.
a year.
That's right. That's right. So during the 20s and the 30s, horse racing became very, very popular. And because fairs had a track where they showed their animals, or they would have wagon races, they decided they should be doing horse racing. And parimutuel betting became popular, and they were allowed to do it on fairgrounds.
So it was legal to bet on horse races at the fair.
Exactly.
Okay.
And when the governor appointed you to be a board of a fair, in those days it was really, really an honor.
Prestigious, I would
It was
guess.
you had to have money, you had to be somebody who knew somebody, and that didn't mean you needed to know anything about the fair.
Sure.
Because it was about the money.
Yes,
And then the state would get, I don't know if it was 1%, but for some reason I think it was probably 1%.
A certain of the betting,
every single bet. That went to the State Department. So the state, even though we say that our employees are state employees, in this day and age, the state gives us no money for the CEO or to pay our electric bill or anything like that.
So you have to be self-sufficient today.
You do.
Okay.
You do. And that probably happened, I'm trying to think, mid-90s maybe, when Jim Tatum was our CEO. We were getting about $200,000, maybe a little bit more, from the State Department to help him run the fair. And in those days, we just had the fair, we had mule days, and the junior livestock show. Those were the three things that we had back then, and the state was giving us $200,000. Well, when that went away, then fast forward us to now, when Jen came, as I mentioned, $5,000 in the bank, so we have to borrow money. And
Now that all makes sense.
yeah, it's hard to follow because we call it a county fair, but it is. But the county doesn't put it on, the fairgrounds put it on,
Yes.
who are directed by the state.
And
We need a
who are
chart.
members of a board. We do. We could have it all. We could have it all lined up for us here. But I'm starting to see it, and I'm starting to understand it now. So here you are. You have this amazing location. You've got the population of the surrounding counties, but you need the CEO to push things forward. Because
Correct.
if you don't if you don't make money, if you don't have, then there's nothing for next year. How can you get the next venues if you haven't banked
Exactly.
money to move forward? And that's where you were before Jen came in.
Exactly. In fact, our fair was really failing because we had no money and we'd had some horrific problems prior to that. And so who are you going to get that's going to take the chance to come to a fairgrounds with no money and realizing they have to put on events to pay for everything, to upgrade everything, and their own salary. So
That's a large risk to take, to step
Isn't it?
into an organization like that, because it's so much falls on your shoulders.
Absolutely.
And you really need to be able to promote that organization, move it forward so
Right.
that it can become the vision that you had at that point in time.
Absolutely.
And so you borrowed the money. Jen came in 2018.
Yes.
And that's where you started from.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So she's grown it so much to, well, let's face it, now, I'll try to remember everything that we have, but we have, I mean, the big things that we have
Yes.
quinceaneras, we have weddings, we have barbecue contests, but we have mule days, we have the fair, we have the high school rodeo, which we just got another 3-year contract from, and that's something that we have to
Wow.
bid on, and then we have other people bidding against us, and they come up with ideas of what they want to see when they come back, and so. One thing is maybe more stalls, more covers, whatever it is.
Your infrastructure. So not only are you having these large venues, and the venues are growing, and the participation, I would imagine, is growing as well, but then you're reinvesting that back into the fairgrounds, into the community, and bringing in even larger events.
Exactly. Thinking about finance, I need to boast about the fact that the fairgrounds, this past year, let's say, Jen comes, we've got 5,000. We have at least close to 600,000 in the bank right now. This last year, we did over $1 million in Little Old Bishop through
goodness.
Jen's leadership. Not that we have that in the bank. We only have 600,000 in the bank. But
that's not only. That's a very large
Can you
amount of
imagine?
growth in that amount of years. And then look at
amazing.
how it filters into the community. You've got folks staying in hotels, the RVs, the camping spots are full. Everyone.
Can
is
I
here.
interview you and ask you? That's exactly right.
I mean, it
it's
does.
true.
It
yeah.
is, and it's crucial to keep a small town community.
It
I
is.
think like this going. So.
Let's talk about that again. So the things that we bring, it's hotel money, it's gas money, it's the movies, it's the
experience,
stores,
yeah.
and then we talked about this earlier. When people come to our community that haven't been here before, let's say they come fishing, I can't tell you how many generational people come back to Bishop.
Oh, yes.
my grandfather used to take me to South Lake, or I mean, it's amazing.
It is. I own a home now that used to be a motel in the 50s. And I will get the generational fishermen that will come by and knock on my door and ask if they can just walk around. It looks like a home now, but it used to be a lodge with motel rooms and things like that. But that's really part of their life. It's part of their connection. It's that space.
It is.
And that's what you've really been able to invest in, to bring up to a higher level. And now you're bringing in these bigger venues.
Right.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's something to be really proud of.
It is.
Yeah.
I know we're going to talk about this later, but you've got me talking about all these wonderful things. Jen has put together a drone show, and I went to Ventura to see the drone show, and it's going to knock your socks off.
Oh my! So tell me a little bit more about this.
I can't. That's all I'm supposed to
Oh,
say.
see, that's a teaser. Okay. Well, I'll have to see it then.
So you have to come to the fair.
I will. And I want to talk about all of the positive things that are happening, because there's a lot that we want to look forward to. There's a future that we see here with the fair. But I wanted to touch on one thing that's maybe not so positive, if you don't mind talking about it, and that's the audit situation that's going on right now. We've all heard about it in the community, but I'd like to hear directly from you what your take is on it and what you're able to share with us.
It'll take a little bit of time because it took a long time.
Yeah.
It's been a very unfortunate situation that has happened that to me has just devastated our community, and certainly the Fair Board family and our community. We were so excited that we were finally going to have an audit.
And who is it that does the audit?
The audit comes from the auditor of California, CDFA, California Department of Food and Ag.
Okay. And this is something that just happens routinely? They audit boards such as yours?
Thank you for asking that question. We haven't had an audit in 15 years, and as I explained to you, we had some horrific things happen to us that almost completely destroyed and broke the fairgrounds. And my feelings now are looking back, the State Department, the Audit Department should have been down here when those embezzlements happened.
Why didn't that trigger an audit? But it had been how long since?
15 years.
15 years, okay, okay.
So
the auditors come in, and what period of time are they to be looking at? Are they looking back 15 years, or what are they concentrating on?
Well, when they came, they called us and said they'd like to come and do an audit. And you need to understand the reason why we are so excited is that when we go to Western Fairs Association, it's that's New Mexico, that's Arizona, that's Nevada, that's California. Our little fairgrounds is always on the top. Jen has brought in so many things and initiated so many things, especially through COVID, when we did the movies out in the parking lot.
I went to one of those.
I mean,
that was so
figure
fun.
That one. I mean, who could have thought that one up?
Yeah.
But she kept us going and came up with fabulous ideas. Well,
and
anyway,
reminded us all that you're still there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she did things like we helped the movie people out because we let them come on the fairgrounds and sell popcorn, and of course they could keep all the money that they raised. So Jen isn't. She's very, very much part of this story, but she's also one of those people that she doesn't brag about anything. She's very, very generous, and she always she gives out so much of her talents. And you just ask me, do you need some help? I will help you. So anyway.
So the auditors come in. And you're happy that they're here?
Totally.
Because it's been some time. You're
well,
doing
and
your thing
not only
there.
that, but we have asked the state, we had asked the state for help. We're saying, okay, so we're this fairgrounds, we have this new CEO, we want to be your poster child. We want to be one of those fairgrounds that was suffering and didn't know what to do, almost broke, but look what we've done. Look what we've done as a community, a board, and a CEO.
Yeah.
And so we're going, oh yeah, okay, we're going to get another star.
Yeah.
And a woman comes down, Visha, and from CDFA, and I've never experienced anything so demoralizing, so threatening, and so unprofessional. It was like you were being accused of things. It was very accusatory in the questions being asked. Some of them were totally inappropriate.
And when did this all start? When did she come? When did
She
come?
came, thank you for asking that as well. We got a message that we were going to be audited, and we said, oh, great.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, it's, just a couple of days before Mule Days. Can we do it in September? We're all going,
I know.
Yeah.
Yes, please, but not now.
that's anytime. So they came the week of Mule Days.
Just this year for Mule Days. So it's fairly recent that she was, that
Yeah,
this
a
all
year ago
began.
Mule Days.
A year ago Mule, okay.
So this has gone on for a year.
Okay.
And so they're here during Mule Days, and of course they're asking for paperwork. They're watching people run in and out, and it was difficult to say who are fairgrounds people, who are Mule Days people, because we on the board have all been helping 20 years with Mule Days. And so they were confused as to who was a volunteer and why would you volunteer and are you getting paid? No, we're just part of the community.
Well, and that is this community. I don't
Exactly.
lock my doors, and if my neighbor needs something from my kitchen, she'll just call me from my kitchen and ask me where
Right.
it is.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not unusual for that to happen. So
Yeah.
I can see the volunteers probably having that same access to, stuff.
Exactly.
Or space at
Yep.
least. So and so the auditors are here, the community's doing what we do.
Exactly.
And they didn't understand
They
that.
didn't, not at all. And it's very busy in there, and people are running in and out of well, you've been to our little offices.
Yes, it's little.
And she would ask people what they did, what their job description is, and let's say they were the office person, but that office person also mowed the lawns out in the back and fixed the sprinkler systems. Well, this auditor challenged what people did in their job. And she said, well, you can't do both. And well, you do at a fairgrounds.
You do in a small town.
Exactly, exactly. So you do what makes it work, and I don't know that this person had ever been to a fair, definitely not a small fairgrounds, and constantly asking for paperwork. Honestly, Amy, if I could show you the boxes that we had in the office, they went to the ceiling because they wanted paperwork. You said you were used to audits.
I was. So I have a background in banking and mortgage
Okay.
finance. I've actually been a VP of a bank and have gone through audits where I had 10 to 15 employees. And it's very intimidating when the auditor came in. But within the banking world, they're very structured. We know exactly what they're going to look for because we knew what the rules were. And in communicating with
Exactly.
you, it sounds as if you were looking at this as an opportunity to know the rules. We've been doing this since we haven't seen you yet, so come on in, and maybe there was, it sounds as if a huge miscommunication there.
100%.
I mean, to say it lightly, maybe. But,
100%.
So here she is, and how long was she in Bishop? That was 2023.
Gosh, well, she came a couple of different times.
Yeah.
But I am going to share one other negative thing that happened during that time. She asked inappropriate questions of people, and also when she did leave, she picked up a laptop and walked out the door. Well, when she got to Sacramento, she called and said, well, you've just sunk yourself. And we're saying, well, what are you talking about? You gave me the wrong laptop. Nobody gave her the wrong laptop. There were several of us in the office. She picked up a laptop and walked out the door.
And what was the laptop that she took? Was it someone's personal
Well,
laptop?
it was,
or
what we, it's what we did our payroll on, it's what we
okay.
paid the bills on, it's what we sent. Oh, that's another interesting thing. We have our books done by the state of California.
Oh, so that is your bookkeeper. That is
Yes.
your accounting. So I wonder why they're not auditing it at that level. They
One
just-
would, there's
so
many
que-
questions.
so
there are, Amy.
It does, and the more we speak, the more, and that's why I wanted to touch on the audit or talk more about the audit, because everything that I've read has led me to ask 10 more questions. I can't imagine what it's like to be in your position.
I hope that when we have the town hall meeting on
Yes.
Wednesday,
Yeah.
and we can talk more about that, that we'll be able to answer some of those questions. There are so many things that we would love to share. And, you know, I've had people say to me, well, things are out there, there's gossip out there, why haven't you come forward sooner, faster? What people need to understand is that we were basically threatened when Michael Flores and his attorney came down, and we either went along with what they said about the audit, or if we thought this was hard, just wait. And so,
And those were the threats: either comply or we'll make it worse.
Exactly.
And it was presented to you like that.
yeah, and I don't want to make a joke out of this, but when they showed up, Michael Flores and Haig, when they came to review the audit with us, we were at Alta One, and we were waiting and waiting and waiting for them. They were 2 hours late.
How long did it take from the time that they came in, they gathered all of the data, before they come back to sit down and talk about their findings?
It took probably, I'm trying to think, was it a month and a half?
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay, so they came in with the whirlwind, they take the wrong laptop, or take a laptop maybe they should have taken a different one?
Well, we
or-
ended up sending them the one she wanted.
Okay,
But they
okay.
kept the one that she
Okay.
didn't need for a
Okay.
couple of months.
Okay,
And
okay.
so, yes, so.
Okay, so now they have the one that should have been given to them when the audit information was.
And what they got off of it, I have no idea.
If you have a bookkeeper somewhere else, it's interesting to me that there's a laptop floating around.
And
But-
you know, the way high tech is, if they wanted something off of our computers here in Bishop, they could have done it from Sacramento, I'm sure.
It's certainly, and generally audits work where you have a list of things that are being audited, and then you present them information based on
Right.
that list of things, and then if they have additional questions, you give them the additional information.
That's right.
And is that what you were, so how long after that was it you were at Alta One?
Amy, you're 100% right. We were expecting a learning situation because we had never been audited, and all of us on the board have never received any training whatsoever or any policy manual from the state of California. We didn't know. And while all of us on the board have been in positions of leadership, education, or ownership, we're fairly, I would say, sophisticated in that manner, but I'm not a bookkeeper, and nor are the other people.
Well, and compliance is a whole different world
It
because
is.
you need to know what guidelines you need to comply to.
Exactly.
So when those guidelines aren't provided, it's very difficult to understand, and it's generally not 4 or 5 people that do that. There's generally a compliance officer or a manual or a list, and that's
Right.
what you were hoping to get. So here you are at the Alta One office. Can you tell me a little bit about the room? If I were a fly on the wall, what would I have seen during that meeting?
Well, it was closed session, but let me back up to what it felt like to be there. Our meeting was supposed to be at 3 o'clock in the
Okay.
afternoon. And we made sure that all 5 board members were there. They wanted a quorum, and it meant that we had one fair board member who was getting livestock ready for the junior livestock show that week, and lives down in Lone Pine. And another person had been traveling, and so we really worked hard to be there because this was going to be our chance to react to the audit
To have the face-to-face.
with the big guns, supposedly, Michael Flores and Haig. And so we're there and we're waiting and we're waiting and we're waiting. And Michael Flores, who is the interim CEO right now, said, oh, well, they just texted me and they're going to be late. And so we said, well, okay. Then we broke for like 15 or 20 minutes because he said they're not going to be here till 5 or 5:30.
So it's the board members and Michael in the office waiting for others to
Michael
come?
Flores.
Okay.
I'm sorry. There's 2 Michaels. They both have last names that start with F. And,
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
over 70. Not like those other girls, but
We won't tell
that's
anybody
right.
that.
We're not. But anyway, Michael Fransconi,
Okay.
he's going to be with the other 2 men, and we're really thinking he's just part of reporting out to the audit. We at that point we have no idea that he's going to be the acting interim CEO the very next morning.
Oh my.
We don't have that idea.
You had no idea?
No.
Oh my goodness.
And while we're waiting, I happened to go outside and go in the lobby, and I looked outside, and there's 2 highway patrolmen, and I really don't think too much of it. I think they're going to come in and deposit money or something like that.
So they're in the bank.
At the credit union.
Yeah. Okay.
And eventually, Michael Flores and Haig show up, and it's about 5:15 or so. And we had 3 people wait to talk, and actually we had the mayor, Jose, was there.
For over 2 hours you've been waiting now.
Because they're very important people. Not only that, and this is where the joke about the age comes in, because we're looking to try to decipher why are 2 highway patrol people here. Well, they needed protection. Flores had called highway patrol and said they needed an escort, and so
Protection from the
from
board.
the 3 women that are over 70 and the
Oh
other
my
2.
goodness. Oh my
And
goodness.
So,
Okay. So they
yeah.
come in with 2. So now we have the whole group together.
Yeah,
And
but if you
we've
don't
added
think
2
that we didn't think one of us, we're looking at each other like, who did what? Because we're
Yes,
really.
that would be incredibly
I
intimidating.
mean, this is a very serious thing that we're going to be doing and talking about the audit, but we think we're working things out. We really didn't get it that we were. We were walking the plank, and we had no idea.
So everyone is together. When did you have that understanding of what was actually happening at that meeting? You went in thinking you're there to discuss to discuss an audit. Now you're.
You have a pretty creepy feeling when there's 2 highway patrol people sitting out in the lobby.
And that's when your thinking started to change. What's going on here?
What yeah. What is this all about?
And what was going on?
Well, and I can't tell you a whole lot about closed session, of course, but I can discuss some peripheral things without
Well, let's say when you walked out of the office, what was the new structure? So you have your meeting. Are you allowed to tell us what the end result of the meeting was?
Yes. I'll give you a little. and that is we're going to discuss.
we don't
this
want you to
part's
say
okay.
anything that's not.
This part certainly is okay,
Okay.
because we're going in to talk about the audit.
Okay.
And the point being is we're going to try to explain our portion and our answers to the audit, not theirs. And they really didn't want any part of that. And so when the meeting was over and we walked out, Jen had resigned for health reasons, and they had a letter prepared, already prepared, just whipped it out and handed it over, and Jen was gone, and the fair board was released of all of its powers, and we could come to board meetings. The state was totally taking over. They would call the board meetings. They would run the board meetings. And I have asked Michael Flores, where does that leave the board? Who makes that decision as to whether we come back on the board or not? And I said, does that mean you have to rehabilitate us first? And if you think we can be rehabilitated, you're going to put us back on the board? And, well, logic says to me that that's not going to happen, because we are the only fair board and the only fair that is fighting the state over the audit.
And you've all, if I'm understanding correctly, you're all in limbo.
We are.
No one knows what their goals are or what the reasoning.
No.
Other than what we can't talk about in the meeting, everyone is in limbo as to whether you're going to be able to come back.
Correct.
And jump back into where you were before.
Exactly.
So, and is there any indication as to when you may know that?
No, I think that when I first talked to Michael Flores, he had planned on staying until the 4th of July. And it's way past the 4th of July.
Yes,
and
here we are.
So again, when people talk about the fair, you know, I want that, and I want to be positive about that. Jen set everything up. And like I said, this drone show that we're going to have is going to knock everybody's socks off. We've never had anything like that here.
I will be there to watch it for sure.
You know, and she brought the X Games to Ventura, and that's the other thing that we really haven't talked about. They were doing okay. They were doing about $1 million. She brought about $4 million, brought them up to that while she was there. And they have backed her as well, their fair board. So it'll be good, and we'll just got to keep this community together and have the community together to support Jen and the Fairgrounds Board.
How long after all of this began were you in Alta One, waiting to what you thought was to see the results of the
that would
audit?
That would have been a couple months. So we had the first audit with Visha Ray, their auditor, and we did call the State Department and ask for a different auditor because it wasn't working. I mean, she was so. She called people here in the community and would ask them questions about what they did at the horse show or who was running this. It was unreal.
Pretty
actually.
far-reaching.
Yeah, it's one of those stories where truth is, fiction, truth, whatever. You can't make it up sometimes.
Stranger than fiction.
Thank you. Stranger than fiction.
Yeah, and here you are living in this, trying to figure out what's going on.
That's right.
Yeah.
So. In between, before Flores and Hyde come to Bishop to do the final audit with us, they sent us another attorney, a staff attorney by the name of Peter Webb. When he came down, he said, okay, I've looked at the audit findings, this Visha Ray, and we said, we have our answers. We've been working on this for like 2-3 weeks, putting down, no, that's not the truth. You're telling the story one-sided, and you've started a sentence, but you didn't finish it with an answer from us. And so he said, he came down with a template even with answers to the audit and said, this is what you need to do. We only want 1 or 2 sentences. We don't want all of that you've written.
Okay.
Because if you think this is bad, you turn that in, you're really in trouble. And so we said, well, we honestly didn't want to do what he told us to do, but he was an attorney from CDFA, and so we obliged.
Okay.
And put down.
And he was instructing you on how to respond to the questions or the concerns that were uncovered in the audit.
Exactly.
So you had already created your responses.
Yes.
You had already addressed their concerns.
Yes.
And he said, no, don't address them that way.
That's right.
Okay.
And even some that we had already taken care of, because there were some simple things in there, and there were some things that were easy to correct because we didn't know you shouldn't be doing X, Y, or Z. So we said, okay, so we changed that.
Fix it, right.
And so we're very proud of all those things. And but explanations about the RV, about the money.
So this comes back up later then. So we talked earlier. She's staying on the fairgrounds. Her RV is there. Now she's
Right.
basically taking on multiple jobs because she's managing night shifts, mowing grass. I mean,
Right.
all those things that we do.
Right.
But this was an issue within the audit.
Exactly.
Okay.
One thing we did leave out, my fault, about a year ago, Michael Flores and Haig came down and talked to us. They talked to us in person one time, and then they talked to us via Zoom. There was a new program being instituted that this Michael Flores came up with, and he was doing like sister fairs, because fairs were having difficulty. And so, it would have been logical if maybe we did Ridgecrest as a partner, because Jen was doing so well. He wanted to put her with another fairgrounds.
To bring other fairs up to the level of what you've achieved.
Or a partnership, because I don't know the real answer to that, except for it was a something he was going to try.
Okay.
And we were part of being guinea pigs. And so while we were on Zoom with him, he's saying, we would like Jen to go to Ventura. And we're all looking at each other like, whoa, if you're going to, that's 294 miles one way.
Yes.
And that doesn't sound like a partnership.
It sounds, as if they're kind of pulling her towards that community.
Exactly.
Oh.
So we said, well, what are we going to get out of that? And what is she going to get out of that?
Right. Because that opens up, that's a hole then in the board that needs to be filled. Her tasks are huge. So,
Exactly.
And they want to pull her into different space. I understand.
Exactly. So what we said to Flores is, you give her the salary when she goes to Ventura that the CEO that's there, that she's getting, because we are like a level 3 fair and Ventura's
I
a
see.
level 5.
Okay.
Because of population and everything else. They're a $4 million fair, and we're a $1 million fair. So, well, okay, we could do that, he says. And then that was agreed upon by them. It was in writing, in a contract, and they have said they've reneged on that, actually. And we talked about travel, and we said, that's 294 miles one way, back and forth. Well, they would pay the mileage. And when we talk about the audit more at
On Wednesday.
on Wednesday night, we'll explain how they have said Jen needs to pay back the mileage that they have paid her. And they never did give her the salary raise that they promised that they would.
Did she actually go to Ventura?
She's been working both fairs
Oh my
for a
goodness.
whole year.
And they want mileage reimbursement for what they had paid. Okay.
Yeah.
And then here we come back to housing. And we come back to the RV. And what are they noting in the audit about the RV and her staying at the
They're
fairgrounds?
forgetting that they helped suggest that to give her enough money so she would be at level 1, that she could have the RV space. And now they're saying, well, they changed those rules a few years back. Nobody ever told us. And not only that, but there are many fairgrounds where people that work at the fairgrounds live at the fairgrounds.
I would
so
imagine.
it's not, that wasn't a new thing.
It's not unusual to
No,
have that
no,
situation
no,
happening.
not at
so
all.
where does that bring us today? Where are you today with the audit, with Jen, with the board? What's happening right now? That's probably an enormous question to ask, because I would imagine the ripples from this situation, I mean, it's huge.
They're horrific,
It
actually.
sounds like it really
Yeah.
does. So
you know-
if you could give us a little information about where everyone is today and why we have the need to talk more on Wednesday.
Okay, let me back up by just saying a few things that when we talk about what we do here at the fairgrounds, let's talk about that fair family and the community again.
Yeah.
You know, we have the horse shows, we have the junior livestock, we have the rodeos, we have the fair, we have mule days, and we have all these concerts, these summer series, and we're also in charge of helping the city run the Friday night fairs, where we also get music. And then we have a big concert coming in October. Okay, having said all that, where are we going with this, and how does this work out? I'll move to the board, and Jen, for the last couple of years, have been talking about working with the city or working with our county and having them buy the fairgrounds.
Well, and I was actually thinking that as we're talking, because I'm thinking of the benefit to the community. The fairgrounds is one thing, it's a place, it's beautiful, but it filters in to what we talked about earlier, the hotels, the
That's right.
campgrounds, the tourism
Exactly.
industry. So can someone come in
Right.
and step in and continue the growth that you've made
Right.
and help in this situation? Is that something that anyone's considered?
We went to the city council meeting Monday night. Judy and I did, and we talked about many things that are going on or have been going on with the state taking over the fairgrounds, and because I want to be sure and put that out there. I mean, they removed her and they removed the board of all of their ability to vote, to call a board meeting together, and so we really actually have no power.
And that's where we are today.
That's where
we're
we are
sitting
today.
Okay.
But our goal would be to have either the city or the county get invested and let us control it locally rather than from the state. And because the state really doesn't support us, and yet they're getting our tax-paying dollars. For every time we get more successful, they get more money through taxes as well.
Certainly,
So-
and then send an auditor instead of sending somebody, a compliance officer that can be preparing you for the
Yes.
audit. You know, I mean, this has been part of prior to the business I own today, that was part of my life, living in that world of constant audits. And there were ways to do them, and it sounds to me as if this situation could have been so much more friendlier and it could have had such a better outcome.
Absolutely.
So here we are today. The board is not able to meet. Jen is no longer on the board.
Correct.
Okay. And hopefully we can come into the Wednesday meeting, we can gain more information.
I would love that.
And folks can come, and our listeners that are here listening to this that want to be part of the conversation can go to the Methodist Church on Wednesday. They can hear more. They can speak to you
Yes.
and gain more information.
You know, Amy, before we finish, the one thing I'd like to say is that I did bring this article, was in the paper, and so I want people to be sure to go to the Tricounty Fair.com and just look at the things that are going to be here.
Oh,
Jen has put all of
Yes.
this into place. So the people that are worried about, are we going to have a fair or not? Yes, we are going to have a fair. And yes, it will be wonderful. But the people from the state, there's supposed to be a team that's going to come down and run it. So when somebody asks me how that's going to look, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
And we'll have to wait and see. But we've certainly planned it, and it certainly should be wonderful.
Well, the momentum that you've created, there's no way to stop that momentum.
I hope not.
But we don't want to roll through this year's fair and not have that same amazing experience to
That's
look
right.
forward to.
That's
So
right.
I can't wait to hear how your Wednesday meeting turns out. I can't wait to see all of this come back together and see these positive things. Hopefully this is a bump in the road for you and for the other board members. And I would love, after that meeting, if you want to come back in and talk to us some more.
Okay, I would love that.
It would be fantastic
Thank
to
you.
talk to you. Before we go today, is there anything else that you wanted to share? Anything else that I've missed?
No, except for just to say thank you. And this community is just wonderful, and they have been reaching out, and they know what's right and what's wrong. I mean, we also, the fairgrounds is the evacuation center. And you know, when we had that fire, we had all kinds of people bring their animals over. Nobody charged anybody any money.
Yes.
But if the state were here, they would be charging for the stalls. I just want people to know that.
Well, everyone's beautiful, livestock and horses, and I mean, they're basically family members.
They are.
Yeah, I remember when that took place and how beautiful it was, that those animals, being members of our families, had a spot to go to.
I mean, we had goats.
I bet you had just about every animal out there.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Chickens. But no, I think there's such a love for this community, and I feel like we are very close. We all know our neighbors. When you're driving down the street, you honk or you wave, and what a wonderful place we live. And I want to see that continue, and I believe that through reinstatement of Jen in the Fair Board, we can continue to do that and continue to grow and be successul as we have been.
Yes. Yeah, and everyone benefits then,
Oh my gosh, everyone benefits.
Yeah.
I mean, it does I love the fair.
Well, I know I've gotten teary-eyed talking to you because it's nostalgic for me and the time that I've been here. So I just want to thank you for your time. It's very valuable. The insight that you shared with me, it gives me a whole new perspective on what's happening. And you're really in my heart. The fairgrounds is my heart, and I wish you all the best of luck with everything that you're going through. And when you're on the other side, let's sit down and talk again.
Okay, I'd like that very much.
So nice to meet you. Such a pleasure. That wraps up our conversation with Joanne Parsons, a board member of the Tricounty Fair at the Bishop Fairgrounds. Thank you, Joanne, for sharing your valuable insights and exciting updates about the fair. Remember, the Tricounty Fair is the heart of Bishop, California, and a beloved event for residents and visitors alike. Don't miss the town meeting this Wednesday, July 31st at the Methodist Church in Bishop from 6 to 7:30 p.m. for more information on recent changes and future plans. Thank you all for tuning in to Business Matters with me, Amy Smith, on Eastern Sierra Now. We're committed to keeping our community informed and connected. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like and subscribe to our channel for more information and updates. Visit easternsierranow.com. Take some time to get out and enjoy the stunning natural beauty of our Eastern Sierra home. Until next time, I'm Amy Smith, wishing you all a wonderful day.